Good morning. Thank you all. Welcome to Protection Review 2021, and like all good Adele albums, we've stuck a number at the end of it. At the wonderful Landmark Hotel, 2.5 years since we've been in this room. I still can't believe it when people say it's 2.5 years since we've been here. A lot of things have happened since then, not least editing 70 different bits of video together for our Christmas event last year that you may remember. And I feel very thankful that you're all here, very gracious that you're all here, as I'm pretty sure everyone in this room does. But let's begin by drawing attention to some positives. During a global pandemic, did protection insurers close their doors? Did they pull products from the market? Did prices shoot up overnight? No, none of those things happened. The industry kept going, kept protecting people, and kept paying claims. And I don't think anywhere near enough credit has been given to the industry that we are in for that. The protection industry is resilient, and the country is better off for it. Looking at what happened in a little bit more detail, we have some market stats from our friends at iPipeline. This first chart shows you how different types of distribution fared since the start of the pandemic. The yellow line, for example, is telephone-based intermediaries. And you'll see from a starting point of 0, that's gone pretty well, actually. Not quite the same for other types of distribution. Perhaps understandable given the circumstances. The second chart I'd like to share, confirming probably what we all see, that the gender gap in protection is closing. And if you want to know more on this, please do talk to iPipeline at their stand during the day. Now, later today, we're going to talk about the future of product development and care and support services. What did we get right? What did we learn? What needs to change? What can advisors do? And what might things look like in the future? Then, we have something brand new, the big reveal section after coffee. Very excited to see what that's going to be. And this afternoon, another new session, the big debate, where you'll hear from 3 vastly experienced people from different areas of the intermediary market on the really big challenges facing the sector today. It promises to be entertaining, thought-provoking, and yes, we've got a few ground rules in place to keep everybody happy. This morning, though, we're going to talk about consumer trust. I believe we mostly know why consumers don't trust this industry and why they don't buy from this industry. We've all seen the surveys. It never pays out. Insure a small print. It's too complicated. The forms are too long. I don't need it. It won't happen to me. My work will cover me. The state will cover me. My pet goat will cover me. I'll move back home, and so on. But what do we do about this? Arguably, not an awful lot. We moan about it a lot. But are we really bothered about changing it? Or maybe, perhaps, there isn't a problem at all with protection insurance. It's done an awful lot of things over the last couple of decades to improve its act. But instead, a far bigger problem with insurance in general, and we just get lumped in. General insurance, business interruption insurance, and many more. It's all just insurance, it's all just noise. And why should we expect anyone outside of our industry to think any differently? Especially when those pesky insurers never pay out anyway. Motor insurance and home insurance are mandatory, of course, but also claims are far more common. Certainly that's the perception. While there is much evidence that insurers, of course, do pay out the vast majority of protection claims, there is far less information out there about the frequency of protection claims. Claim stats and case studies are great, and I work on many of them personally every week. And things are certainly much better now than they were in the media in the past. I can remember seeing several different decline claims on national TV within a matter of weeks of each other. And I remember being an advisor answering those phone calls the next day when clients were calling up asking, should I cancel my policy after last night's Watchdog or Rip Off Britain, or whatever it may have been. They just don't happen anymore. But we're not going to see generation-old opinions changed by a few case studies. And even when we tell people that almost every single claim is paid, many people don't believe us. They think the numbers are simply too good to be believed. Research suggests that the level of trust is higher among those who've purchased cover rather than those who have not. It will pay out for me, they think, as if declining a claim only happens to other people. But of course, declined claims can only happen to people who've bought a policy. And likewise, both trust and interest in protection certainly appears to be increasing amongst younger people compared to older generations. Consumer media coverage of protection, though, isn't always frequent, or dare I say, as accurate as we would collectively like. And since the pandemic began, a number of insurance pieces, particularly around redundancy and income protection, needed to be amended for factual errors after being published. But of course, on the flip side, some people in our industry sometimes expect stories in newspapers to look like a perfect piece of marketing. Well, that's called advertising, and quite rightly, you pay for it. Now, the more common thing we've seen in the national press about the industry of late is not declined claims that we're used to, but fraudulent claims, such as people cutting off their own hand to make a claim, such as somebody shaving their own hair and pretending to have cancer to claim, as far as setting up their own charity page to prove that it's true. The headlines are on screen. And maybe, in a roundabout way, these stories help build trust. They help to explain why insurers do what they do and why application forms are sometimes a bit longer than you might expect. But when an insurer declines a claim, a disputed, genuine claim, and it reaches the press, I wonder if the people in the room making that decision realise quite how much work that triggers across the industry. From social media, hundreds of people getting involved on social media that day it's in the newspaper, to advisors speaking to clients, to competitor and reinsurer questions, conversations and investigations, on or off the record. I suspect it is many hundreds of hours across the industry for each claim that makes it into the press. And one day, I wonder if perhaps we could respond in a more considered fashion as an industry to decline claims. Maybe we might never improve consumer trust for protection until other insurance sectors improve. And one of the questions we've already had submitted for our panel this morning is, will things ever change? The industry can debate whether 90, 92, 95, 98% of claims get paid, but the public still thinks it's 50% at best. And that's where the real work is, and it will require collective effort and proper financial support. But also, do we underestimate how big a decision it is for some people to buy cover? We often think it's an obvious no-brainer decision. In fact, we get lost in thinking it's an obvious no-brainer decision because we know what we know. But for many people, it's a difficult hurdle to overcome. And in the race to be all things to all people, have we collectively made products and processes too complicated? Every time an insurer says, oh, do you know what? Some people want this, some people don't. So we'll offer it with or without. That's good, but what's the bigger impact every time somebody does that? And where simple products exist, which are to be commended, the problem, of course, is that the cover is often diminished by default. And sometimes we beat ourselves up for not doing more, but let's also remember consumers have a duty to protect themselves. In fact, arguably, the greatest burden of all is on the individual. Protection Review is all about encouraging people to think a little bit differently. We don't claim to have all the answers, but that's what we hope to achieve today. To walk away with that spark of a new idea, a different way of thinking, a new way forward, or maybe just to challenge the current way of doing things. To discuss all of these issues and more, I'm delighted to say we have a really great set of panellists and speakers, not just this morning, but throughout the day. Stephanie King recently had her income protection claim paid, and before we go on to talk about consumer trust, she's here to talk about her experience. So please welcome to the stage, with a big, friendly Protection Review round of applause, Stephanie King and Esther Shaw. Thank you both.
Thank you. Right, so, well, thank you so much for joining us here today. An important story to tell and some experiences to share with us. So you've come here obviously as a claimant, income protection claimant, but let's just backtrack a little bit and tell us a bit about you and what you do for a living.
I'm a nurse, and I wanted to come today to tell you about my experience because it meant such a lot to me. I've been a nurse, I'm in my 40th year.
Amazing.
I'm not that old, it was training as well. But I took a decision when my daughter emigrated to go to bank and relief and agency work. And a lot of people, they say, oh, it'll never happen to me. And they don't think of protecting themselves. Luckily,
just let me cut in briefly. Why is it so important as an agency nurse rather than an NHS nurse?
Well, it's, you know, it's the flexibility of agency, but you don't get a sickness benefit from any health trust. I stepped away from the NHS purely because my daughter emigrated and I wanted flexibility to go and travel to see her.
So it gave you a lot more freedom, but it also took away...
It also took away your protective things. I've found it, you know, like Kevin took my little thing saying, you know, that a lot of people think that, oh, they don't pay out. You read this, that in the paper. People have to be fraudulent before they'd get a claim. It's extreme and whatnot. And there is a lot of, you know, negativity, I think, you know, and then it'll never happen to me.
So just take me back to when you took out your policy then. What prompted you to do it? And you know,
well, it's ridiculously because I'm a nurse and I see illness all the time. Absolutely. But a very simple thing, like hopping through an airport and I had my leg bumped and it wasn't a hematoma, it was just a big bruise. And I thought to myself, oh gosh, what if I broke a leg? Or what if I broke an arm? That would take me out of action for, you know, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, depends on the complex nature of the fracture.
And as a nurse,
I just thought, gosh, you know. So I'm in the airport researching and thinking, oh, how do you do this?
And did you search? You went, I think,
I went on a comparison site and I found out then that was a little bit scary. I thought, oh, I have to have a financial advisor to do this. But
that was quite new to you?
Yeah, you know, but the process was really simple. A gentleman from Cardiff got in touch with me and he put me in touch with the company. I'm actually with British Friendly. And I've got to say, they are very friendly, as I found out, because none of us,
well, let's come to that. You obviously had it for a few years. I think you took the policy out quite a long time ago.
And obviously, I think, you know, with any relief work with nursing and things, you know, you're not off, you know, with a common cold or anything, you know, you know, and it's very flexible, so you can sort of roster yourself in, and so if you're feeling a bit under the weather, you're going to be working around that, you know. Obviously, none of us knew what was going to happen.
So if we come to 2020 then, obviously it was a
2020 hit.
Fairly big year. What happened to you in that year?
I was working on the wards, on the surgical wards, and I contacted COVID. As I've said to Kevin, I can't really talk much about the whole event of my illness because it does get me rather, you know, emotional.
But what was the issue, the length of time that it took then to...
The process of claiming, it was very easy, made very easy by my company. I obviously had to liaise with my doctor, and I've seen a specialist, and it was really easy that you just had to email, telephone, and you're appointed with a representative from the company, which I would honestly say became a friend.
And were you kind of surprised that it kicked in, or were you just relieved, or was it...
You know, I mean, when you're first unwell, you don't know how long going to last. I took my policy, and this is where I think the myth is that people think, oh, it costs such a lot, and you know, you have to be ill for centuries and a day before they'll pay out. But I mean, it is tailored to you. I opted for the month one, and you know, I just pay.
And I think some people would argue, I think you said to me, some of your friends would say that's a lot to pay each month.
Oh, a lot of friends say, you know.
What's your kind of justification, and obviously for you?
I just think, well, you know, I just thought, well, I really need to be protected. I don't smoke, I don't drink, so I'm thinking, well, you know, going out on a party or whatever, it's more than affordable if you break down to, you know, it's £55 a month I pay. And it was part of, you know, it's more important really than any of your insurances really. You know, as I found out now.
You just talk me through how long did you need that policy to pay out? Because I think initially you thought you would only be off for a short time.
Well, initially, you know, you just don't know, but it just went on and on. I'm asthmatic, which I was very well controlled, and, you know, that's tailored into my policy. But when I became ill, I was very neurologically hypertensive. I went into a few stroke alerts and different things like this. And it just, I was actually off for 10 months.
Because initially you wanted to go back. I tried to go back.
I tried to go back. Yeah. I said to Leslie, because I've worked all my life since I'm 16 and I don't fare well, as probably a lot of us did.
Leslie is
Leslie Murphy is the representative that was appointed to me in British Friendly. And so it wasn't a success story. I was literally at a state of collapse in work, you know. And she said, look, you know, we spoke to the GP, and you know, it continued. The claim continued on. I needed extra time, and
then talk about, you ended up having a kind of phased return, didn't you?
Yes, and then I was ready to go back, and she said, perhaps you need to speak to the doctors and staff for a phased return to work. And the way that worked is you went back for a set amount of hours, and you sent her your hours and pay slip, and then the company equated your money up to what you'd been received, so that, you know, it did enable.
By having that policy there, then, did it mean you could kind of focus on your health rather than having to worry about?
It was, you know, it took the stress away, and what it also enabled me to do as well, I wasn't impacted like other people. You know, perhaps I don't want to sound very controversial in any way but I felt better off than some of my colleagues who maybe they'd moved from one health trust to another. Literally, they hadn't had a break in service really, but they weren't paid out.
And it meant they had no cover in place, so if they got poorly, there was nothing there.
No, and obviously there were a lot of people that hadn't taken my advice and hadn't gone for the policy, and it ended up like I have a friend, she was off for 4 months with COVID, very unwell, hospitalised for 5 weeks of that period, and she literally had no choice other than to max out her credit cards.
Yeah. So there was no safety net, there was nothing else there?
No safety net whatsoever, and
so what would your kind of advice is? But, you know, if your friends or nurses or colleagues will say, I don't need it, or, you know, it's not going to happen to me, what's your, you know, and, you know, for the industry, you know, what would you say? How can we encourage people?
Well, I mean, I can't encourage it enough, really. I just think, you know, seek that, you know, get onto your financial advisor and get, you know, tailored to you, because you can definitely afford it because it's tailored to your needs. You know, it obviously goes by your age and your current health, but, you know, obviously something is better than absolutely being not protected at all. And in the industry, as I say, I don't want to be controversial at all, but I think nursing and healthcare professionals, I think it's a sort of a biggie, because a lot of people are stepping away for the flexibility of hours, and even trusts are taking temporary staff, and, you know, the substantive posts are getting a bit fewer, and, you know, they're taking on people on a ad hoc bank basis, but they don't get sick pay.
Yeah.
They're not protected at all.
There's no benefits and there's no protection.
And yet, you know, you are in an industry, it's a sort of a hard industry, a heavy workload. And that's for, you know, not older people, that's for all ages. I mean, you have people, they say, oh, you know, I'm going to qualify in, you know, a 6-month period. They like you to post-qualification. And a lot of people, for the flexibility of it, and, you know, like me, travel abroad. And I just want to, you know, thank the gentleman from Cardiff that got me in touch with British Friendly, and thank all the, you know, all of you guys for all the hard work you do. And just
but if I could finish then, how are you doing now? Are you looking very fine? Better,
I sort of felt that I was really healthy until I'm really scared. I'm really scared to come up here. But yeah, I'm just nervous. But no, I'm doing really well. I'm back in work, and I've done a course, so I'm vaccinating as well.
Brilliant.
And,
you're working pretty hard again now.
Yeah. Can I just read out, when I spoke to Leslie, I was going back to work, she wrote back to me, we're so glad that you're feeling well now. We are really glad that we can make a difference, and that our jobs, that we can make our jobs into more than just jobs, if that makes sense to you, and it certainly did. I send my best wishes for your continued return to good health. Keep strong, and don't forget that we are always there for you. All the best now, Leslie. And Leslie is the RGN underwriting claims for British Friendly.
And as you said, I think on the phone, she always became kind of a friend to you, didn't she?
Yeah,
she became
she did,
kind of a huge part of that support.
Yeah, I cried actually when I had my first full pay slip, because I thought, oh, I've got no reason to ring now. But, yeah.
Thank you so much for that. It's a really, really helpful story. Thank you so much for being on stage today.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.